Welcome to 321 Government class. Now we're looking at a topic titled Political Ideologies. Political Ideologies. At this point, we are going to be looking at the contribution of different political thinkers, political gurus, and a lot more. But before then, what we're expected to know here is for us to differentiate between the various concepts or the various political ideologies as popularized by different scholars. Now, the first one we have here, we have what we call communalism. Communalism. And we have feudalism. Feudalism, which is also part of our list. Then we have capitalism. Capitalism. Okay? Then having seen this now, the next one we have again, we have what we call socialism. Socialism. We now have fascism, or you can call it fascism. We have fascism. Okay? Then we have what we call communism. Communism. All the way from Tanzania, all the way from Italy, all the way from Morocco and different countries practicing this particular system. No, the expectation here is we should know the meaning of all these concepts, the basic features of all these concepts, the difference between this particular concept. Now, the first one we're going to look at is we're looking at communalism. Communalism. We said communalism is a social. Communalism is a social, we said communalism is a social, political, and economic arrangement and economic arrangement is a social, political, and economic arrangement, okay, in which landed property, is a social, political, and economic arrangement in which landed property, okay, and other natural resources, natural resources, okay, are collectively owned and managed, they are collectively owned and managed and cooperatively harnessed by the community for common good, So you see, in this particular system, which we call communalism actually deals with a system or is a process, okay, or is an arrangement. It's a political arrangement, it's a social arrangement, it's an economic arrangement where landed property, essentially, take note please, where landed property and other natural resources such as their crude oil and other sources there, okay, natural resources are collectively owned. It is not owned by one person. It is collectively owned and managed, okay, cooperatively by the community for common good. That is for their own common interest. So in this particular system now, we are looking at the collectivity in terms of property. Everything is owned by everybody in the society. It's not possible for you to tell me I'm the owner of Dangote Cement, for example, or I'm the owner of Nikon Insurance, or I'm the owner of a cool hotel and suits, or whatever it is wrong, okay? In this particular system, everything is collectively owned by the society, by the people, for their own common good. The founding father of this particular system, we have Julius Nyerere of Tanzania. You see, this particular system is just like going back to the traditional way of doing things those days, whereby everything is collectively owned. If you want to go to farm, people will gather, your friends will come together, farm for you, do whatever they want to do. And that is what we mean by communalism. We have Julius Nyerere as the founding father. Now we're looking at the futures. So in case in your objective, it's actually a system of government where, or it's a political ideology where land are collectively owned for public good is called what? Take notes. It is called communalism. Communalism. Okay? Then the future, number one of the future is collective ownership, not individual ownership. Properties and other resources are collectively owned. In a country like Nigeria, they'll tell you one person has 7 oil blocks. What kind of nonsense is that? One person has 15 oil blocks. And you see other citizens, even biro you don't have. So how do you progress in this kind of country? But in an ideal situation where this particular system is being practiced, everything is, NIPC is owned by all of us. All the profits, give it to us, let's eat it together. That is what this system implies, okay? Collective ownership of landed properties. Of landed properties. Even other natural resources, take note, okay? Then next we said we have landed property itself. Landed property, I told you under the Land Use Act of 1979 in Nigeria, to be precise, all land belongs to federal government of Nigeria. Therefore, they have the right to take over that land from you. Why are they taking over the land? For common good, for public use. What is public use? You want to construct schools, roads, hospitals, and a lot more universities. These are for public use. But for example, if MTN, maybe they wanted to take over your land, or any organization, they have to pay you huge compensation, and you have every right to tell them you are not doing. But government has what we call compulsory acquisition of land for public use. So if you look at this particular feature of communalism, number 2, we said we have landed property. Landed property is an essential part of it. And number 3, we said we have strong relationship among people. You know, since everything is collectively owned by us, definitely we are going to be very, very strong. In a country like Nigeria, somebody is destroying transformer. When you see him, you look, my papa property now, let him destroy it. It's not my father's own. Now, in such instance, now that carelessness, you know, that reckless attitude is there. But if you and I know that if anything happens to that particular transformer, it will affect all of us, then definitely you protect it. So you know, there's this strong relationship among people because they have a particular thing that brings them together, that binds them together, and that's one sweetest part of communalism. Then next we said we have no room for exploitation. Exploitation is an act of taking advantage of somebody. The person worked for you for 10 days. You are giving him 200 naira. 200 naira will not solve his transport. And that is pure exploitation. Therefore, nobody to exploit in this particular system because everything belongs to us. Where are you taking the money to? If you want to build 10 houses wrong, take only 1 house. Allow somebody to take another house. Unless if you want to marry 4 wives, then no problem, they'll give you 4 houses. And these are the issues we're having. So there is no room for exploitation in a system like this, okay? Decision making for everybody. You can't take individual decision. Decision is collectively, collectively taken for the good of everybody in the society, okay? So that is just it for it. So in summary, we are saying that communalism is just a short definition. It's a system or is a social, political, and economic arrangement in which landed properties and other natural resources are collectively owned and managed cooperatively, okay, in order to harness the common good of the people. That is what we mean by that. We said it's a social, political, and an economic arrangement in which landed property and other natural resources are collectively owned and managed cooperatively by the community for common good, okay? And we've seen the futures. Next on our list, we have a system called feudalism. Feudalism. Feudalism here is the identification of landed property. Feudalism is the identification of landed. We said feudalism is the identification of landed property with sovereignty, over parcel of land, over the identification of landed property with sovereignty over parcel of land, which becomes a private property, and possession of the family. Now, if you look at what we have in feudalism compared to what we have in communalism, communalism has to do with, the landed property itself. But, the issue of communalism here, the landed property, natural resources is collectively owned by everybody in the society. But in this particular system, of feudalism, reverse is the case, because we are saying it is the identification of landed property with sovereignty over parcel of land, which becomes a private property and possession of the family. Now, it's possible an individual who owns land will tell you, I'm the owner of this land. Nobody will use this land again. It is only me. He can sell it. He can pass it to his great-grandchildren without considering the interest of other people. So therefore, if you look at my short intro here, I said it has to do with identification of landed property with sovereignty. What is a sovereignty? Sovereignty here, you obtain the right to do whatever you want to do with the land. That has been the system before Olusegun Obasanjo came into power in 1979. Those people, whenever you buy a land, there's what we call allodial title. Allodial title. Formerly, allodial title used to be issued before we now have C of O, certificate of occupancy, not certificate of ownership. Take note, these are the titles that will be given to you whenever you own a land. Okay? The origin of this particular system can be traced in the medieval Europe between 11th to 13th century. We have the 11th to 13th century. At this particular point in time, we have it, okay? Century. Therefore, feudalism lay much emphasis on giving an individual an absolute power to control the land, to use the land, whatever he wants to do with it. Why is it so? Because initially he was in charge and he now converted that land into his own personal properties. But thank God, we have the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution brought an end to feudalism. Industrial Revolution brought an end to feudalism. In fact, that Industrial Revolution brought an end to many systems. Monarchical systems started coming down, feudalism started coming down, fascism started coming down, Nazism, talking about Adolf Hitler of Germany, started coming down, fascism, talking about Benito Mussolini of Italy. All these systems started coming down, and we now have a better system called democracy. What are the characteristics, features of feudalism? The basic features of feudalism. Number one, the king or monarch exercise control over the vassals and serfs. In this particular system, we have lord. Lord. There's what we call the lord. Lord is the one who is in charge, probably the king. And we have the vassals. The vassals. The vassals or the serfs are the followers or the slaves, as the case may be. So the king or monarch exercise control over vassals and serfs. They control these particular people working under them. If you have a slave, whatever that the slave owns belongs to you if the slave dies, okay? And that's what we're saying. Now we said number two, the first feature, the king or monarch exercise control over vassals or serfs, okay? These are the people that are under him. So he have absolute control over whatever they owns. Then next we said we have